Welcome to the Providence College Podcast. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. If you like what you hear, please review and share with others. Email podcast@providence.edu with questions or comments. Go Friars!
Hello and welcome to the Providence College Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Chittum. I'm joined by PC videographer and Providence College podcast producer, Chris Judge, class of 05. As a major gift officer here at Providence College, I have the privilege to meet hundreds of fascinating people within the FAR community, and I am excited to share some of their stories with you. And today we have a class of 08, Joshua Giraldo. Thank you so much for joining us. Right now you're the chief of staff of the mayor for the mayor of Central Falls, and before that you were a teacher here in Rhode Island, and very recently. And this is just great news. First of all, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And very recently, the Feinstein Institute for Public Service just put you into the Hall of Heroes, which just sounds awesome. Hall of Heroes.
It feels awesome.
So, what was that like? Tell us about that night, and tell us about how how you were alerted to the award.
Well, it was a fascinating night. I was fortunate to be with my friends and family here. Back at Providence College. I hadn't been back in a while, so to step foot on campus was a huge deal. I was alerted about the Hall of Heroes nomination a few months ago by Mrs. Manson, who is in the education department here, and who I had worked previously on a variety of projects, who I've kept in touch with over the years as I've progressed from being a family literacy teacher to a sixth grade teacher to director of Parks and Rec, and now to chief of staff. So she's sort of seen my progression along the way, and now nominated me for the Hall of Heroes, which was an amazing feeling. It's almost inexplicable.
Mm-hmm. So you're still a young alumnus for PC, which is fantastic. So you graduated eight short years ago. I guess first thing is, why did you choose Providence College?
I chose Providence College because it was close to home. I knew once I graduated from high school, I wanted to stay close to my family. I really didn't have the means to travel anyways, and I was very fortunate that Providence College had given me a good financial aid package, which was really important to me and my family. I basically went off the great reputation of Providence College, and was happy I made that decision.
In what high school?
Central Falls High School.
Got it. So local boy, staying close to Providence College.
Yep.
And what was the PC experience like for you? Was it how you envisioned it being, or what was it? How did it end up panning out?
It was wonderful. I am truly appreciative of the supportive staff that was here and is here at Providence College. I really didn't get the average college experience. I spent a lot of my time working when I was during my time here. I was working full time at Bank of America at a call center, so I'd commute to class, attend my classes, spend a lot of my free time in the library, and then jump off to work. So
what was that like? How many hours a week did you work at Bank of America?
I was working about 35 hours a week.
Wow.
Yeah, 35, 40. It was up there.
So for you, during that experience, obviously, like you said, it's not the typical college experience. I guess what are some of the positives that you took from that? Because going down a path that most people don't go, sometimes you get very different results as well. Do you feel like that sort of experience impacted you differently than it may have impacted you if you had more of a traditional college experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it helped me with my organizational skills for sure, and scheduling and making sure that I was able to manage a variety of workloads, which certainly helps me in my current position as well. So I think constantly being on the go and needing to fulfill a variety of deadlines while I was here certainly prepared me along the path that I was going to take.
So, and where was your job? I guess physically when you were at Bank of America.
I was in East Providence.
Okay,
yep.
Got it. So you're shooting back and forth between PC
and Central Falls,
yep. And then East Providence as well.
Yep.
So from a study standpoint, what were you majoring in?
Elementary and special ed.
Got it. So why did you choose that?
That's a great question. So when I first came to PC, like many undergraduates, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But I did know that I wanted to be involved in helping my community in some way, shape, or form. So I had taken a few classes in community service, and education and sociology, a variety of courses. And I ended up taking an entry level education course and absolutely fell in love with it, and really was fascinated by education and how we prepare children for the future, especially because around that time Central Falls was going through a lot of issues, especially with their teachers, and so I was really intrigued by what was going on and how we can improve education in the state. And so it sort of hit me, and as soon as I took that first class, I knew that's what I wanted to go to school for.
So what was your experience like growing up at Central Falls from an education perspective? Because you just mentioned there's been a little bit of tumult during your time at Central Falls. But during your time at PC, looking at Central Falls at that period of time, did that kind of mirror some of your experiences going through the school system?
Yeah, I'll tell you some of my background. So going through the school system, I was always a relatively good student. In the Central Falls School District, I had, received good grades and was involved in sports, and sort of came into Providence College with a lot of confidence. And that confidence was shattered as soon as I started attending, some of my first classes. And as I continued taking classes, and as I continued to learn more about education and the education field, I sort of realized that I wasn't as well prepared as I thought I was, and my school system wasn't preparing me as well as I thought it had. And so that sort of lit a fire as to why. I started questioning, why are things this way? Why did we have a 50% dropout rate at Central Falls High School? How can we change this? How can we make it better? How can we get good quality education to our students? And so it sort of took me from there.
Right. So during your time here, do you feel like you helped answer some of those questions, or kind of get you down the path towards answering some of those questions as you kind of progressed through your 4 years?
It certainly did. And as I progressed, I learned more about school funding, about preparing our youth, about the importance of early education, and all those standard things that I think sometimes get overlooked. And it really sort of got my interest, and I was really excited to learn more about it. Right.
And I think one of the current buzzwords in and around education, just personal growth in particular, is grit. Right. So you hear about it quite often. There's one book out by Duckworth. I forget her first name. Grit is the title. It's a bestseller. It kind of is here, there, and everywhere, as is kind of that buzzword. And for you, it's more than just that. You just mentioned, during your first semester here at PC, it was kind of a shocking experience from the academic piece. You came in, feeling really good about, your academics growing up, as you should, right? You come in, you got into the school. There's no reason for you to think it would be anything different than what you previously experienced. But then you kind of got thrown for a loop a little bit. So what was it like kind of bouncing back? And do you feel like that's kind of prepared you for other things down the line?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming to BC, I felt like I had a lot on my shoulders. I had a family. I was the first in my family to attend college, so I had a lot of friends and family really rooting me on and hoping for the best. And so I sort of took that and used that to motivate me, to push me through those really difficult times of having to work and go to school and deal with a variety of other issues.
Right, I bet. So then you finish up. You actually had a wild college career, just in terms of a scheduling perspective, because not only are you, coming back and forth from Central Falls, but you have the work experience. But then majoring in education, obviously you have your student teaching, you have practicum, you have all of these things. So you finish up, and then at that point you get into teaching, and you stay local. So for you, what was the process in terms of going from, graduating at PC and then trying to make a mark in the local community that you were hoping to make during your time kind of preparing for that?
Sure. So as soon as I graduated, I started off as a family literacy teacher in Providence at Alfred Lima School. And it was a really awesome program where parents would go to the elementary school, drop off their children, and the school department gave us a classroom inside the school. So the parents would go drop off their child at school and then go up to the classroom and learn English and learn technique. It was predominantly for parents who were looking to learn English and learn techniques as to how to help their children with homework and just their schoolwork in general. So I did that for about 2 years, learned a tremendous amount, but decided I wanted to get back, decided I actually wanted to work in Central Falls and work with Central Falls youth. And there was a new charter school that was opening that had just opened up. It's called Blackstone Valley Prep. They were hiring teachers, and I had applied and received an offer to be a founding 6th grade social studies teacher.
And then off you went.
Off I went.
Back to Central Falls. And for you was going to a charter school. I guess we'll focus on that for a second, because obviously when you're at that time, charter schools were fairly new to Rhode Island.
Right.
So how was that going into the charter school model where you probably had envisioned yourself and had previously worked in kind of a more traditional school setting?
I think it was enlightening. I really enjoyed it. I at least at Blackstone Valley Prep, they had a variety of techniques and tools and ways to engage children and families that I hadn't seen before in any other locations that I had been. So I really appreciated their innovative approach to education.
So you go back to Central Falls.
Yep.
At that point, are you working with students whose families you know? Obviously, Central Falls is not a big place. So it must have been very, I guess I don't even know the word for it, but it must have been really felt like home in a very traditional sense, because you're seeing people coming either into the school, either to drop off their kids or brothers and sisters of people you may know. Was that the kind of experience that it was for you?
Absolutely. So the thing about Blackstone Valley Prep actually is that they take youth from 4 of the communities in the area. So they take youth from Central Falls, Pawtucket, Lincoln, and Cumberland. And I knew many of the families, and it was like home. I'd go to work, but after work, I'd see these same families at the supermarket, in the street, playing at the soccer court, everywhere. Right. And it's an awesome feeling to sort of show the youth that that you can go to college, get a decent career, and come back to your community and help out.
So at what point do you start thinking about more of the political side or administrative side of the experience of helping your local community? You are a teacher, but obviously we know your current job now. So at what point do you start seeing other potential avenues to make an impact?
Sure. So at the time when I was a family literacy teacher, one of my close friends, who's the current mayor, James Diosa, was interning at Sheldon Whitehouse's office and had come across a newspaper article about a special council seat that had opened up. They were going to host a special election, and at that time, admittedly, I absolutely knew nothing about politics and the impact that it would have on my future. But he had brought it up to me, and had told me it was something that he was interested in running for. I started to look into it. I myself and a bunch of friends had a small group that would meet occasionally and think of ways as to how to better Central Falls. As I had mentioned earlier, Central Falls was going through a really rough time at that time, whether it was the corruption or the school system in trouble, where we notably fired all of our teachers, and it was a really crazy time, and a lot of people were looking down on Central Falls. So me and that group of friends, and I would meet occasionally, and we decided to support James in his endeavor to run for city council, which he ended up winning by 17 votes, and I was sort of his campaign manager at the time, even though we really didn't know what we were doing. We were, 20-something years, like early 20s, with no political experience at all. But luckily, we had some people from the community that saw potential in us and guided us the right way. And so assisted them with that campaign, basically, just knocking on doors every day and bringing a message of hope to the people of Central Falls. And from there, he continued on to continued as a city council person. And when our former mayor was arrested for basically for corruption, they held a special election, and I was a teacher at the time at Blackstone Valley Prep, and he had asked me to be his campaign manager, which I was fully supportive of, and really thought this was a great opportunity for our city to sort of make a comeback. And the support that we received was absolutely phenomenal and tremendous, and it was a really uplifting and exciting time in Central Falls.
So what, in your role as campaign manager, what does that entail exactly?
So basically it serves a campaign manager. There's a variety of functions. So whether it's recruiting volunteers, motivating volunteers, managing the campaign budget, setting up strategic meetings with key partners throughout the state, working on our messaging and how we want to convey that to the community. So putting all that together with a team, of course, it certainly wasn't any of us on our own, working together to make sure that we were able to convey our sincerity and to the people of Central Falls.
And obviously it went well. So you're undefeated as campaign manager.
Undefeated right now, yes.
So at that point, did you have visions of, all right, if this goes well, maybe I'll try to find a spot within the government? Or at what point do you say, all right, working full time in Central Falls for the administration is something that I have ideas of doing, as opposed to just I'm just helping, I'm just going kind of day by day here. We're just trying to work on.
It was literally day by day. I had never had any aspirations of entering politics. It basically came along when then Mayor Diosa, we had a conversation, and I don't want to necessarily say it in a negative way, but he was sort of begging me to come and take over his Parks and Recreation department, which had been battered down because we had gone through a bankruptcy. Central Falls notably went through a bankruptcy in 2011, and our budgets had been slashed, our youth programming had been slashed, our community center was closed, our library was closed temporarily. And our youth were really impacted, and were really struggling. And so he knew of my obvious dedication to the youth of the community and how dedicated I was, and had asked me to take over that department, which was very small, had no staff, had very minimal programming, and taking that position, I actually took a pay cut from being a teacher. I was doing decent, and had asked me to come on over to the city side, and it took a long time to come to a conclusion, but I felt that was a way that I could have even more of an impact on the youth of the city and the city that I love, where my family and friends live.
But you mentioned some of the issues with the Parks and Rec department prior to you getting there. So what do you tackle first, right? How do you set, all right, here's my to-do list, not just today, but short-term, long-term. How do you approach a situation where, all right, there's a lot of things that need to be improved, but you can't emphasize everything.
Right.
So how do you align your priorities with some of the things that need to get done, and what do you do first, second, third?
Right. What do you do first, second, and third when you have no money? That was the question, really. But one of the focuses that I had was morale. What type of community events, what type of activities can the city do to sort of boost morale? And it was, I'd say, a fortunate time because Mayor Diosa was just elected. Everyone was hoping for a turnaround, and everyone was sort of rooting for Central Falls. So that sort of aided me when I would reach out to community partners and ask for assistance or sponsorships or whatever it may be. So I think the momentum that we had as a city was extremely tremendous in terms of garnering partnerships and ways for others to contribute. So, one of the things that I first jumped into was our youth programming, obviously. And two of the things that we got off the ground sort of immediately was one was the summer food service program, where basically that's the program where they have them in a lot of inner city communities. It's the program where kids can go to a park and receive a free breakfast or a free lunch. So we sort of took that program and found ways to sort of elaborate and make it sort of a summer camp. So instead of just serving meals, I was able to recruit staff and secure funding to pay that staff so that we'd have programming for youth every day in the summer from 9 to about 2:30. So not only would they come and get a free breakfast and a free lunch, but we'd play basketball or soccer or have water balloon fights and all that fun stuff, which was so desperately needed. And I think the community fed off of that. I think they appreciated it. I think we had that program at one of our local parks, which is right on one of our main streets. So when our community members would drive by and they see 200 kids running around having fun, playing in a sprinkler, it sort of motivated them and made them feel proud. 200
kids, that's not insignificant. That's quite a number.
Absolutely, and it's been growing. The program previously to the DIOSA administration only had about maybe 30 or 40 kids a day. Now we're up to about 700.
Wow.
Yeah, at a variety of parks, and we have a mobile system that goes from park to park and drops off lunches, and it's an awesome system.
I can imagine. You can see why. Just looking at you right now, you obviously take a lot of pride in how that worked out. Right. No, that's fantastic. And then at some point you make the transition up to chief of staff for the mayor, who's a friend of yours, obviously. And what's a typical day in that role?
Oh man, that's another interesting question. Every day is different. I aside from my standard weekly meetings with all the directors, we have about 11 directors in the city for various departments. Aside from that, it's meeting with we have a very small staff at City Hall, especially in the executive office. It's the mayor and myself, and so our office is responsible for constituent issues, for scheduling, for community outreach, etc. So it might be meeting with a Progreso Latino, for example, who's a valued community partner one day, and the next day might be meeting with a resident who's angry about who knows what. But there's never a dull moment, and I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the job.
I can imagine. You probably have stories for days. Yeah, not that you want to share them in this podcast.
No, not at all.
No, that's fine. But it's so in your time at Central Falls, what are some of the things that you look towards as, all right, we've helped establish this, or this has been an ongoing positive, previous to your time there, that you look to and say, all right, I know that the future of Central Falls is, going to be a positive thing because of X, Y, or Z.
I know the future of Central Falls is going to be a positive thing because of the ways that our team has worked to recruit the younger generation to become involved in politics. The mayor has created a group called the Mayor's Youth Council, where we get kids from the high school, bring them over, introduce them to city government, explain the different departments, how they can become involved, what the role of a city council person is, or what the role of the mayor is, etc. And aside from that, we've been able to sort of encourage a variety of people to run for city council or to run for state rep. And so it's really amazing the transformation that's been happening in Central Falls for a few years. We have a state rep who's under 30 years old, Rep Maldonado, who's from Central Falls. We have Councilwoman Gonzalez, who's under 30. Actually, don't want to tell her age, but maybe she just turned 30. We have Councilwoman Fonseca under 30, and we have a variety of different people trying to get involved and looking to get involved and looking to ways to make a difference in their community, which 10 years ago wasn't happening. No one wanted to get anywhere near politics. They had a bad perception of it. They felt, that the city government wasn't doing much for its people, but now it's sort of a thing that's valued, and people are trying to get involved with.
On a national level, you see kind of faith in politics eroding quickly from a campaign perspective.
Right.
We all see what's going on in the presidential campaign, and not to take one side of that debate or the other in terms of the political parties. I think we can all agree this has been a pretty crazy campaign.
Absolutely.
And preceding that, you see, if you look at polls of, people, their positive ratings towards Congress and things like that, overall kind of faith in politics as an institution or individually, interest in going the political route as a profession has kind of waned in recent years. Right. And I think on that second part, that's kind of more anecdotal on my end. For you guys, I guess this is a two-part question. How have you kind of portrayed working in government as a positive thing when you do your youth outreach? And for you, you didn't grow up looking to be a politician. For you, what has it changed in terms of your career? Say, hey, this is well worth my time. This is well worth my experience, and this has been a positive for me. Not just positive for my community, but it's made my life better.
Yeah, it's the changes that have been observable in Central Falls that people commend us on constantly. So whether it's the streets being repaved, or whether it's the youth programming that we've started, or whether it's the street lights that will save the city money, all these new and innovative ideas benefit the community, and we get that response continuously. And it's a great feeling knowing that you're going to work every day making decisions that will affect your mother, your brother, your cousin, your former students, and your community. So I think that's sort of been a motivating factor, and has made me feel that this is a right fit for me. In terms of the political climate and how difficult, how unappealing it is, I'd say nationwide, for people to get involved. I think I don't have the answer for that, but at least in Central Falls, we people have the thing about why people our residents are looking to get more involved is because they now know that change is possible. If you elect the right people, if you stay involved, if you speak about what the issues are, change can happen. And so we title ourselves the Comeback City, and I see that happening every day, and it's a wonderful feeling.
So if you were going to give advice to a college student now who's either they know they want to enter political life or be involved in government or considering that as an option, what's some advice that you would give to them in terms of what they should do to get started, or some things to consider?
Some things to consider would certainly be honest and accessible. I think that's one of the key factors for us, is that we are completely accessible, whether it's via social media or having extended office hours where we stay open late once a month until 7. So our residents that work all day are able to come to City Hall and talk to us about whatever it is that they need assistance with. And just being honest and clear and upfront with people. In terms of what you can do, I would highly recommend getting involved with your local organizations to start with. Join a board, your local library board, or your Lions Club, or some organization in your community that is involved with making things better.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been very enlightening. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get going?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and it feels good to be back on campus.
Well, thank you, Joshua.